Hello everybody, welcome back to the show. I am joined yet again by Mark. Hi Mark.
All good, how's you?
Yeah, we're good, and today we are talking about elite forces. So we're going to be going over 2 units each that we think are elite forces, chat a little bit about the history, their unit, and what we think, what they do in the game. I've chosen a couple, Mark's chosen a couple. And we go from there. So, Mark, what have you gone with first?
After spending that last episode prattling on for hours about commandos, I've kind of gone with a logical progression from that, which is the American Rangers.
Right, okay, yeah.
Yeah, because I think logical progression, I guess, in bolt action, they're kind of the American player's equivalent, I guess. And also, in terms of the real-world history behind it, this was because we've got a lot of examples of where Britain's borrowed very heavily from America, and this is one of the examples of where America borrowed very heavily from Britain and said basically, this organisation exists in the commandos, and we want to do something similar, and that's how the Rangers came into being.
Yeah, oh, that's cool. Bolt action wise, there are veteran infantry, so you can have up to 11 in a squad, and various kitting options. So a few SMGs, some BARs, light machine gun, anti-tank grenades. So pretty much standard infantry kit, but they have a pretty cool special rule. Do you want to do this one?
Yeah, the Rangers lead the way rule, which is a quote from D-Day. I'm trying to remember the name of the Norman Coter. That was it, Brigadier Norman Coter, who was one of the highest-ranking American officers to go in on the actual amphibious assault. We'll come back to the quote, I suppose, when we start talking about history. But in terms of the special rule, what it basically allows you to do is deploy those units closer to the enemy. It allows you to leg it one turn forwards, with a couple of common sense limitations on that. Yeah. But it just allows you to close with the enemy, which is obviously, if you think about what's going to make you win or lose a game, it isn't necessarily wiping out the enemy force. It's about getting your objective, and you've effectively got an entire turn head start to do that. So it's a pretty good move.
It's also, they've FAQ'd it as well to say that a first wave, if your Rangers are in on a first wave, they get to move onto the table as that first wave before the game starts, which is pretty good.
Yeah. So, they're pretty useful. As you said, once they've used it, that's it. It's gone. And in many ways, they are then just, inverted commas, veteran infantry. Yeah. But I think they've got a lot of flavour to them as well. It's a cool unit, and there's a lot of history behind them.
14 points a unit, points a model, so not horrendous for saying you're getting that free move. Veteran infantry, pretty decent.
Yeah. I think comparing to the commandos, an extra point per guy. What would I rather have? Tough fighter with units which have got a lot of SMGs and anyway, and behind enemy lines, or that.
Well, with this, you're moving on anyway, aren't you? So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, how did the Rangers come about then?
It was basically that the American military thought, with the successes the commandos were having, they wanted something relatively similar. When they, the report back described the commandos as shock troopers. That was the American description of them, and said we want to do something similar. So the initial idea was make American commando units following exactly the same kind of ideas behind it. I can't remember if it was the president himself who said commando has now become synonymous with Britain. It's too British a word, which is a bit ironic because it's South African.
Yeah.
But and they said we want something with more of an American feel, and that's where the term Ranger was adopted instead. But initially, I keep really hosing the pronunciations, so I'm not even going to try.
But we are experts
in Scotland.
Go on.
Yeah, my pronunciations are terrible. But the place beginning with A in Scotland, where commandos were trained in World War II, the first Ranger volunteers were sent there to train alongside the commandos. At Dieppe, rangers were used there in very small numbers to start to glean some experience. And then obviously, they learned a lot from what went wrong at Dieppe, it being something of a disaster. They were then used from that point. But these were guys who, in terms of the volunteers who were called for, even straight from City Street, they were expected to be able to bring something to the party, to have special skills. So these were people who were, had lived out in the sticks and knew how to track, were hunters, so knew how to conceal themselves. Even just individuals who, because judo was starting to become more popular, had some martial arts backgrounds and were, close quarter fighters, that sort of thing. So they were looking for volunteers with a skill set to bring into it.
No, that's cool. Okay, so we've covered one of the US ones there, so that's the Rangers. My next one I'm going to be covering is Fallschirmjäger. So my pick was that FJ, as they're sort of bracketed. So that is the German paratroopers. So if we want to look at bolt action for their unit, so you've got two different types. You've got green Fallschirmjäger, which is a late war thing, and you've got early and late war Fallschirmjäger, which are your elite ones. That's the ones I'm going to be covering. The green ones, that late war feel, they're not really true Fallschirmjäger. They're just sort of a bunch of conscripts that have been thrown uniforms at. Fallschirmjäger are German paratroopers. So you're looking at veteran infantry with stubborn, lots of submachine guns, a couple of light machine guns, some assault rifles, so the FG-42, which was developed sort of end of 43, and Panzerfausts, up to 4 Panzerfausts, so pretty good wide a range of kit there. Stubborn, very handy. So as a unit, they are really handy and quite versatile.
Yeah, on the history side of it, because one of the things which I found interesting on that, and you'll definitely know more than me, is that, and I don't know if Germany's alone in this, but it's certainly rare, that Fallschirmjäger were not part of the army. Whereas with most parachute organisations, they are army soldiers. So what's the background behind that?
So the Fallschirmjäger, you're correct, are part of the Luftwaffe. So all their uniforms, they wear underneath their jump smock, they've got the Fliegerblaus, which is the standard German blue Luftwaffe kit. So a lot of their kit is blue-grey colour. They fall under the Luftwaffe because Hermann Goering wanted them, effectively. So yeah, that's one of the basic reasons. He wanted his own. That it comes more into effect with the Hermann Goering division because he wanted his own elite fighting force, like the SS and like the army had their grenadiers, etc. But they were started. So the Germans really took that idea of parachute warfare and ran with it. The Soviets were really the first ones to develop the idea of parachute warfare. However, the Germans were the first to actually implement it with the invasion of Crete. The issue with why Crete landings were, I won't say disastrous, they won the Battle of Crete, but it was really, really bad for the actual Fallschirmjäger doing the jumps, and they didn't actually use them in combat jumps after that then. Basically, the parachute is a single point parachute. So when the parachute came out, it was harnessed in one single point. So the Fallschirmjäger, when he was jumping, didn't have control over the parachute. So a number of them drowned, quite a few of them got stuck in trees, and they were sort of prodded with pitchforks by Greek farmers. The difference between that and our, the US, British, Canadian paratroopers is they could control their parachute. So they can control where it goes, which means a lot of them, the survival rate was a lot higher. But yeah, after Crete, they stopped using them in that traditional. They stopped using them in that parachute role and used them more of as elite shock infantry on the ground.
Yeah, another interesting thing I found with them is the weaponry side of it. And again, correct me if I'm wrong. Is it the FG-42?
Yeah, FG-42.
Fallschirmjäger weapon.
Yeah, so they came up with their own design for effectively an assault weapon. So in bolt action, there's no difference between that and the SGG-44, the Sturmgewehr 44, which is the first real assault rifle. The FG-42 very, very similar. I've not managed to fire a real one. I've fired a few blank firers, it's a lot of fun, but I've handled a few of the real ones at the firearms collection in Leeds. And it's an incredible weapon. Large caliber round, quite a high concentration of fire, but it never really took off. A lot of them were issued end of 43, definitely 44, 45 onwards. You started to see a couple after Monte Cassino. But it's a very cool weapon, very distinctive. It's got that side-loading magazine.
Yeah. I can't remember, again, I may be getting my weapons confused here, but not in a full kind of modern Austrian way, but I seem to remember it having an element of being a bit modular, that it could also be given a scope.
Yes,
and you can single fire kind of almost like as a sniper weapon as well.
Yeah, it did have a single fire. It wasn't, I don't know whether they took the idea, because the Bren Gun notoriously was, I'm going to be controversial here. The Bren Gun was a terrible light machine gun. It was an amazing support weapon. Could almost be used, like certain people say, it can almost be used as a sniper weapon because of how accurate it was. And I think that was the problem with the Bren Gun. It was too accurate to be a light machine gun. It's not a supporting thing. The FG-42, again, with that higher caliber round, it could be used in that sort of way. I've seen them with sort of makeshift suppressors on as well. So I think the Germans' war industry, they were experimenting a lot with weapons technology and trying new things. And you do see quite a bit of it where they sort of introduce a few thousand of things dotted around the Eastern Front or the Italy front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a if someone was getting into bolt action or considering a new army, what would you say are the kind of things to be aware of with Fallschirmjäger? What's the good reason for going for it, and what would you warn against?
So the nice thing with Fallschirmjäger, with the Rangers currently, wink wink, there is not an army dedicated to Rangers. You can get one unit of them. There are a few selects out there, however, for Fallschirmjäger that let you take an army of Fallschirmjäger. Now, the Noob Trap, as it were, is to take a fully veteran army of like 10 soldiers with all the kit and everything, and you've got like 3 dice. And unfortunately, the way bolt action works, dice wins games. Simple. The more dice you have, the more likely chance you are of picking your unit and doing everything. So the more dice you have in your army, the more chance you've got of winning. With the Fallschirmjäger selectors, sort of 6 to 8 man units with a bit of equipment. I mean, SMGs are awesome. Get them up there. Get them in their face. Get them in the enemy's faces, because they're veterans. They're stubborn. They're going to stick around on your objectives. Don't spam too much equipment. Don't spend all your points on equipment, because you'll overdo it and it'll be you won't have many units. As I say, there are a few selectors out there that let you take a full Fallschirmjäger force. So they all have to be veteran and stubborn. And you can get a few interesting things like a little artillery piece called a Panzerbutzer 41. So it's a tight bore artillery anti-tank gun thing. The closer you get, the more anti-tank it does. It's pretty cool, nice and cheap as well. So yeah, there's a few selectors out there. Don't spam your equipment. That's pretty much the advice I'd give on FJ. And there is actually a plastic box available from Warlord. Really, really nice. I've got quite a few of them. Again, lots of different equipment options, but it gives you 30 odd plastic figures to do like the start of an army with.
Fantastic. I think I've seen the advert for Warlord on the Rangers, because there's a box set for them as well, which is in some ways it's just here's the standard US infantry one, but with some extras tripped in, which is absolutely fine, because if you were to stand a Ranger next to a US Army rifleman in the late war period, you're going to struggle to tell them apart, really, apart from badges.
Yeah.
So, but one kind of cool thing they did is comes with a couple of sprues of white metal heads, celebrity heads of
Saving Private Ryan.
It doesn't say Saving Private Ryan anywhere, but the likeness it looks pretty good to me.
Yeah.
So because that's the thing again, Saving Private Ryan for those who don't know, Tom Hanks and his lot are depicting Rangers. That's the unit they are supposed to be.
Yeah. So next one we're going to talk about is you've picked the SS.
Yeah, the Waffen SS. I picked it slyly so I can try and get you to do loads of the talking. Having done a lot of work on it recently, but I picked it because after you said about the Fallschirmjäger, there's some similarities here in that you've got what began life as an elite force, but in a lot of theatres, and certainly by the end of the war, was anything but an elite force and was a shadow of its former self.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting in a lot of ways. What's also interesting, I found, with the Waffen SS is that when Germany was invading other countries and was taking over other countries, and then forcing the militaries of those countries to fight on the German side, there was a lot of resistance from the German army to say, hang on, the German army is for German soldiers.
Yeah.
And so this very Aryan supremacy elite Waffen SS, which basically said you need to prove your Aryan heritage, blonde hair, blue eyes, all of this sort of stuff. By the late war period, was basically saying we'll have anyone. Our casualties are so bad, we'll have anyone.
Yeah.
And so you started to get Waffen SS units, which were anything but German, and were forced into it. And sadly for them, particularly if they were captured, wearing Waffen SS uniforms. Were certainly not the fervent die-hard Nazis that you associate the Waffen SS with. These were from countries who were forced into it and didn't have much choice of what to do about it.
I mean, but we could do an entire episode on the SS. I think we might do actually, because it's a big subject.
Absolutely huge. And yeah, it is. I mean, that is certainly not me. I'm pretty sure I'm speaking for both of us. We are not going to be defending Nazis in any way, shape, or form, because what the Waffen SS was at its core is one of the most evil organisations in history.
Yeah.
But there were elements of it which were completely press ganged in and weren't the same guys. So it's complicated. It's a complicated subject.
When we do our episode, it'll be on the Waffen SS, nothing on it, nothing on the Allgemein, nothing on anything else. Just the Waffen SS and their combat ability. That is it. No political nonsense.
Yeah. I think in bolt action as well, in terms of how they're used, again, they are veteran infantry, although, again, watch this space. More options coming soon. But yeah, I said I'd pick this, just kind of try and crowbar you into talking more, so I'll hand over to you.
So,
from an access point of view, what are you bringing to the party? What are on a tabletop term, what makes you distinct? And what are the new options?
Tabletop wise, so I'm going to caveat this with tabletop wise, purely in bolt action, they are quite fun. I had to caveat that.
We're making that clear again.
So on the tabletop, the unit itself, very, very, again, same with the Fallschirmjäger, really varied. And it can do a lot. It can cover a lot of roles. You've basically got inexperienced, regular, or veteran infantry now with the latest FAQ. However, we're going to be talking more of the veteran because that's what we're looking at, the proper SS. You've got early war and late war options depending on your equipment. And effectively, you can kit them all with SMGs, assault rifles, a couple of light machine guns, anti-tank grenades, Panzerfausts, and you can also make them fanatics because they're nuts basically. And you can 3 points each. You can make them fanatics. So again, you can have a really nails hard unit, and it is a hell of a noob trap. Basically, a lot of people, they go for like a 10-man squad with fanatics, 2 light machine guns, all assault rifles, all the Panzerfausts, and before you know it, you've got a 200-point unit, which is just way too much. So don't fall for the trap of kitting them out with everything. Just try and limit the stuff you want to do. So if you want to have a fire support squad, just give them 2 LMGs and then nothing else. Leave it at that. They're going to sit at the back and blat away. If you want an assault sort of form squad, again, same numbers as the FJ. I like to run them between 6 and 8. A bunch of SMGs and a couple of Panzerfausts just to get into the enemy's face. Selectors wise, there are loads. Oh, there are absolutely loads. Again, the Normandy books that are coming up, they will have some new SS content in there. I won't say too much yet, but they will have some SS content. Fortress Budapest has got some really good SS stuff in there. There's so many selectors for these, so it's worth having a look at the books, having a look at what you can see. As far as models goes, these guys have got some really cool looking kit. So I think it's one of the things that draws a lot of people to in the SS is the camouflage kit, because they've got loads of different types of camouflage, and they wore a mix of it throughout the war. And there are so many models as well. I mean, the plastic.
Warlord do quite a variety of them, don't they? Because they've got the standard stuff, and then they've got the Charlemagne SS,
which is the French. This is the French volunteered SS.
And doing a complete 180 on what I said earlier. Whilst some countries who did end up, providing soldiers to the SS was hugely under duress. I don't believe that's the case with the Charlemagne. I think they were
volunteers.
Full-blown.
Yeah.
They were just as bad as the Corps. Happy to, if people know that. So I think they were also nut jobs, Charlemagne lot.
Yes, there's a number of foreign volunteer battalions. I'm going to get murdered for pronunciation of this one. So you've got like the Walloon, which is the Belgians, Nederlander, which is the Netherlands. You've got the British Free Corps, which is the British SS.
There's about 7 guys in that or something.
I think there was a squad. I think there was a few of them. They never went into combat, and they're basically a lot of them. What historians truly believe is that they were there just to escape prisoner of war camps, just to go around in a uniform and get drunk. Most of it, I think quite a few of them emigrated to Australia and to like Argentina after the war, so they wouldn't get caught by us and hung as traitors. But there is nothing stopping you as a bolt action player doing a British Free Corps force and just going what if, because why not. Cool. So we're going to be doing an episode on the SS because it's such a massive subject, it's worth covering. And the last one is going to be me talking again, is the SAS. Yeah, I tell you what, you go with what. Do you know enough about the SAS? Do you want to give us a bit of a?
Right, this is. We should do this more often. This is completely put on the spot with no reading material in front of me. Okay, yeah, the SAS. Just hit the buzzer whenever I start talking nonsense.
Okay,
but I believe the SAS had its origins in North Africa and was set up by David Stirling, who was a Scots officer from the Guards. They were kind of set up with the idea of being bringing the war to the enemy in the North African theatre. But the thing which confuses me on that is the Long Range Desert Group were already kicking around, I believe.
Yes,
and were already doing elements of that. But in some of their early raids, while the SAS were still getting themselves sorted out, the two units were working in quite close conjunction, I think, weren't they?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people get that confused. They think the LRDG and the SAS are the same thing, and they're not. Like you said, the LRDG were driving around in their Chevy trucks, etc. And the SAS were, at the time, jumping out the back of trucks driving across the desert to practice parachuting.
Right.
They were also notoriously bad for nicking stuff. So they had no kit at first when they were first set up. So they went to a New Zealand army camp while they were away on manoeuvres and nicked their camp. They took all the tents down, they took everything, nicked it, drove off and set up their own forward base.
I mean, that's only one step short of full Dad's Army driving a steamroller over a camp. That's amazing.
So yeah, you've got that set up in the desert, and they were sort of handpicked as rogues and rebels, sort of the guys that don't really fit into standard British Army mentality and had something about them, something a bit quirky, or like I said, they were rogues, so they were sort of, there's this sort of romantic feeling about them when it comes to their sort of raiding.
Yeah, you get people like is it Paddy Mayne?
Paddy Mayne.
That's a character who really kind of sums up those early war raiders, I think.
Paddy Mayne I could probably talk about Paddy Mayne all day. He's an incredible figure. He was an ex-Ireland rugby international, but I think he was a sandwich short of a picnic sometimes. He'd go brutally over the top. One of the airfields the SAS raided, they took out all the German aircraft on the ground. They heard in the distance the officers' mess. There was a do on the go. He went over with a couple of men, kicked the door open, and then hosed everyone down inside with his Thompson. So he was bravely ferocious. I think that's the best way of putting it. There's lots more stories throughout the war of what he got up to. Moving on from the desert, they were utilised in Italy in a poor way, and towards the end of the desert campaign, they were utilised. The Army Command tried to use them more of as a frontline fighting force, like we talked about in the previous episode about the commandos. The Army Command tried to use them in that way, and it went spectacularly wrong. A lot of them died, and it didn't work well. So when it came to Normandy, they used them in the same manner as they did in the desert, behind enemy lines, harassing, and guerrilla warfare.
So, I guess the two things to move on to from that are, what models are there out there, and how do they play in bolt action?
Yeah, so the unit at the minute, so you've got, in the Western Desert book, there's a whole section on the LRDG and the SAS. I'm not going to go too much into that because there's a lot in there, but that's specifically for the Western Desert. For late war, for Northwest Europe, there's a squad, so it's veteran fanatics. So they get fanatics, not because they're nuts. Well, they are a bit nuts, really, but they're not fanatics in the same sense as like the SS. It's because of their incredible training and bravery, that sort of thing. They get fanatics.
There's a paragraph, isn't there, in there that says that the fanatic rule is used to represent their quality of fighting, not to say that they are fanatics.
Yeah, exactly. Various kits, you can give them all SMGs, which is good. You can get a couple of Vickers K guns in there, so that the aircraft gun, lot of firepower, and that's pretty much it. And they get it behind enemy lines, as you'd imagine. So pretty tough veteran unit. As far as selectors go, at the moment, wink wink, there is not a lot out there for late war. Early war, there's loads of really good stuff for the desert though. Models wise, there's a huge amount of models out there for them, and again, it depends where you're doing them. So your early mid-war desert guys, you shouldn't really be using those in Normandy. So in the desert, you've got this picture of this bloke in shorts with a what do you call the Arab headscarf, a shamag sort of thing.
Yeah,
the Arab headscarf and a big beard, driving around his Willys Jeep with the radiator cut open. That definitely did not happen in Northwest Europe. So Northwest Europe, your SAS man would be mistaken for a British paratrooper. So most of the time they had a windproof smock or a Denison smock. So if you don't know what that is, I'll pick one up here. This is what it looks like. A Denison smock. Your red beret with the SAS badge, and then a lot of pretty standard equipment. And they wore paratrooper helmets. So your late war, you could really, on the bolt action table, get away with using British paratrooper models as well. There's a few out there, Warlord Games, Artisan. There's a wide range of models for them out there.
Yeah, cool. One quick one, because I know we'll be probably a bit pushed for time.
Yeah.
But as you've opened the SAS can of worms, what about the SBS in World War II?
You know what? That's something I don't know a whole lot about. Do you?
Oh, no. Maybe we can come back to that one. We'll both get Jen up and come back with a bit more.
That'll use some research because as far as models / selectors, anything, there is nothing out there for them. So I think that's something we should come back to, definitely. That's opened up a can of worms.
Yeah. I've got like a full 250-page book on a shelf here about the SBS in World War II. So clearly they did a lot. So I need to read the thing and go from there.
Yeah, if people don't know out there, differences, SAS is Special Air Service. and the SBS is Special Boat Service, so more of your naval sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think it started life as the Special Boat Squadron, which was part of the SAS. And again, I'm shooting from the hip here, so maybe I get it. But I think the SBS was originally a subsection of the SAS, and then broke away and splintered off later on when it was realised there was enough of a requirement for it to be its own thing.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, we'll do an episode on that. We'll do some research. Thank you very much for joining me today, Mark. It's been a pleasure again.
No, thank you. I will get back in my cupboard now and await the knock for the next episode.
Awesome. Again, thanks for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. If you've got any comments, any questions, anything, drop them in the comments below. Don't forget to like and hit that bell icon and subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much.